Welcome to Sevier Heights. If it's your first time with us online, we're so glad that you dropped by. And if you're here to watch a past message, you're in the right place. If you have questions about giving, next steps, or you just want to learn more about who we are, click the link in the description or just visit us at sevierheights.org. Thanks so much for being here. Let's jump into Sunday's message.
Well, good morning and happy Father's Day. Today, for obvious reasons, I want to speak to dads, but not just to dads. I want to speak ultimately to anyone with an area of responsibility or opportunities of influence, because I don't think there is any area with more influence than home. And in particular today, I want to tell the men in the room, I'm not here to discourage you. In fact, I want to encourage you. In addition to that, it's not just that I want to encourage you. I also want you to understand I'm standing with you, like beside you. Everything that we're going to talk about today, every one of these struggles or urges that men face, I face as well. I also want you to know that I have prayed on behalf of today, like Father's Day, that for the men in this room, you would not see this message as mild-mannered or just some kind of preacher talk. Instead, you would understand these are real life issues. And survival is treacherous. Like I want you to think for just a second, if there is a moment in your life where you think, like if you could play back, you don't know, but if you could play back through men and women, kids, doesn't matter. If you could think back through a moment that, man, that was as close as it ever came to being bad, like the end, like deathly. For me, like there was one moment in an airplane, it wasn't just a turbulent deal, it was a whole lot more to it. I could tell you the story, but I'm not going to bother you with those details. Instead, I want to talk about this one other time that was related to fishing. Many of you know that I enjoy fishing, specifically fly fishing. Jenny got me a fly rod when I was 15, and I was intrigued by the, not just like the skill of it, but the art of it. I love cold rivers. I love clean rivers. I love getting out in the water, not just like fishing from a boat. I love wading. And in particular, I love the Smoky Mountains. But there's a season in my life where I also like as much, if not more, some of the tailwaters in East Tennessee. Rivers like the Holston or the Clinch. And understand those rivers are controlled by a dam that is operated by TVA. We got many TVA employees at the church. I fell in love with these rivers so much that the nights before they post the schedule on whether or not there will be generators running so you can wade in the water or you got to be in a boat. The number's 865-632-2264. You hit 417, then pound, and it gets you directly to the Clinch River, all right? And in the message, when you call to figure out the next day if you can go, there's a statement that is made on the recording every time. And it says this: water may rise rapidly without warning. And you know, you hear it so much that you just kind of throw it to the side. I remember one evening in particular, I took my John boat down to the river. Loved going in the afternoon because in a certain time of the year, there's a sulfur hatch on the Clinch River. And I was targeting that evening, and I was by myself. What I do is I take the boat and I go tie it to the side downriver. We're about 6 miles downriver from the dam. I tie it to the side, and then I get out and just wade and I fish. No people, beautiful. All right, it's just me. And I remember one evening in particular, I have a habit of wading into kind of some stupid areas because I'm targeting a fish that's doing something stupid and it needs to be caught. I would work from like ankle deep, shin deep, knee deep, waist deep. One spot in particular I was working toward as the night pressed on, it was chest deep. Waders go to about right here. And I was so focused on this fish and catching this fish that I didn't notice that the water had started to rise rapidly without warning. It wasn't affiliated with the schedule. It had gone rogue for an evening. And it's their prerogative to do that. And I remember as I was fishing in this section, and I noticed that the water was rising. I looked at the boat, and I'm like, I got a little bit of time to get there. Played through my mind, I think I'm okay. But I remember as the water was rising, I was trying to find a foothold, and I couldn't find a ledge. My foot slipped in the water, and I remember the water decided to go into the waders. And we can giggle about it, but the truth be told, it's like there's nothing you can do once it gets into the waders. You can't swim. It's filled up with water. I remember starting to panic, losing my breath, thinking, where do I go? What do I do? Because my path back to the area of the boat was kind of a long way. I'd have to go a different way, and the water's deep there too. And I remember slowly getting pulled under and looking for ledges, not finding ledges. And this was all for the stupidity of catching a fish. For the first time in my life, I thought I was going to die. For the first time in my life, I'm like, everything that I do from this moment forward hinges on whether or not I'll make it. I remember all my effort, all my energy, bouncing from rocks, pulling, doing all kinds of stuff. Finally getting to what I thought was the bank. It wasn't the bank, to another area. My vision was blurry. Reached out and I would grab an exposed root from a tree on the bank. And I pulled myself up inside and just laid there for what felt like an hour. Thanking God that I'd made it. Realizing why had I been so stupid? Why had I jeopardized things? And as I think about like that moment on behalf of this message today, like there are things that happen in that moment that are very similar to the urges that all of us face or temptations that we face in any area of life. Like think about it. Temptation, it's as subtle as submerged ledges on a rising river. Like my attention is on this, and little do I know that there's other things that are at stake. In addition to that, the excitement of the moment, me fishing, me chasing a fish, it encouraged me to go further rather than stop. Like there was a fish to be caught, right? Stories to be told. Here's another observation. The longer I stayed in the treacherous or dangerous areas, the more dangerous it became. And it took a little while for it to finally dawn on me, I got to get out. Final observation is it required deep determination to survive. Everyone in this room is going through moments like this. When it comes to life, when it comes to family, when it comes to just our approach to anything, we're all getting tempted. We all have urges. I don't know all of you well. I know many of you casually. There's a few of you that have become close friends. But something that I want to encourage all of us with today is this. 1 Corinthians 10 says it this way. The temptations in your life are no different from what everyone else experiences. God's faithful. He won't allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you're tempted, He'll show you a way out so that you can endure. So to the dads in this room today, I just want you to know I believe in the best for you. I'm not here to push you under today. I'm here in a real sense to hold you back, maybe to even help you up. And for all practical purposes when it comes to life, ready? Warning. Water may rise rapidly. And when it comes to how you do as a dad, you ready? You can make it. You will make it. You must. And as we examine these temptations and urges that every dad faces today, with the help of James chapter 1, go ahead and turn there. You're going to see there are some practical guidelines for all of us as we face these different aspects. When James writes this chapter, he's writing to people that are dealing with trials, and he's writing to people like us that are tempted. Listen to James chapter 1, verse 2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles or trials of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. So he's writing to people that are dealing with trouble. That's everyone in this room. But he's also writing to people that are tempted. Listen to this, verse 13. And remember, when you guys are being tempted, don't say God's tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and He never tempts anyone else. So on behalf of these two things that James is writing to for people that struggle with trials and then temptation, here's the difference between the two. Pay close attention here. Trials are designed to bring out the best in us. But Dad's temptation is designed to bring out the worst. There are some areas in particular for dads, specifically on a day like today, that I want to warn us. I want to remind us of the dangerous ground. And on behalf of how you do, I want to remind you, you will make it. You can make it. On behalf of your family, you must. So according to James, as we examine the chapter, I want to highlight areas that every dad is urged to cut corners to swap, tempted to compromise. Ready? Here's 5 of them. Number 1, the urge to swap toys for our time. You know, I haven't been able to shake the words from this song. It's so familiar. I've heard it so many times, but I've never really paid close attention to the lyrics until 2 weeks ago. You'll recognize it. The cat's in the cradle with the silver spoon. Little boy blue and the man in the moon. Look here. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. This is a dad that's too busy for what his son needs most. His time. I realize everyone in this room lives in or around this great city of Knoxville, and I don't know if there's a more subtle message than this. That all of us as dads at home, our job is to provide more and more and more. After all, we didn't have as much as our kids have. And if we give them that, they'll live a happily ever after. This is one of those areas. There's nothing wrong with the toys and stuff, but this is one of those areas that we need wisdom. James will tell us. James 1 verse 5, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he'll give it to you, because this is an area that all of us can slide. As dads, we need wisdom to know when enough stuff is enough. And what's crazy is on behalf of work and working hard and responsibility and providing for our family, there's even a verse for how important that is. Listen to 1 Timothy chapter 5. But those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their household, they've denied the true faith. So consequently, as dads, we have to work hard. We want to make more. We want to provide more. We want to give more. But it's a slippery slope. We need wisdom to know when enough stuff is enough. There's an author named Tom Eisenman. He wrote this in a book for men. Money may be our most difficult obsession. No concept or commodity is more deeply rooted in or driven by emotional needs. Nothing in the world today is more available, acceptable, and heavily promoted. And all the promotions are positive for stuff. This is different from other obsessions that may captivate us. We may struggle with overeating. Food is plentiful in America, but we have help from society to beat the gluttony. Alcohol abuse is similar. It's widely available in numerous forms. It's attractively advertised, but there's also immense pressure from society to manage drinking. Everyone knows the health hazards associated with alcohol. But there is no media campaign to help us control our consumption of materialism, to manage our lust for money and stuff. Truth be told, dads, our gifts are not only abundant, often they're overabundant. And sometimes our gifts, our stuff that we buy the family, is an attempt to take the place of, I should have been spending more time with you. I want the dads in this room to understand there are few things that cause our kids to love us as much as our presence. Presence at the games, presence at their rehearsals, presence at anything that they enjoy, even like pickleball. I didn't think I'd ever like pickleball, right? Just a couple weeks ago, we went on vacation, and the kids decided, hey, we'd like to play pickleball. And I'm like, okay, let's play pickleball. And I saw sweatbands. I decided to rock them. Jenny and I decided to give it everything we had. We got destroyed by our kids. Jenny said a lot of bad words. Forgive me for saying that. So that's her laughing. So we called time out, and we're like, okay, this is a cussing zone just for the evening, all right, in this little area. But honestly, it's like one of our great memories from vacation was pickleball. And it was because they had our presence. On behalf of like the urge to swap toys for our time, Jesus said it like this. Luke 12, he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life isn't measured by how much you own. So dads, let's not be deceived. What our kids really want is us. You know, I came about learning this a few years ago. Some of you know, but maybe almost 9 years ago, I was given an opportunity to take a position at the University of Tennessee with specifically football. And it was like kind of a dream come true from the outside. Like, I did get to meet incredible people, had great responsibility, great opportunities, got to do things that people would only dream of. Like everybody talked about, I can't believe you run through the tee for every game. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. All I'm thinking is don't trip, all that jazz. I'd stand on the sidelines, never missed a game for all those years, but that meant home games, that meant away games, that meant Bible studies for coaches on Fridays at noon, Bible studies that were different for the coaches and the players every Friday night for like 110 in that setting for 15 minutes, just compressed, praying at ball games, on the sidelines, recruiting, all kinds of stuff. And I did it for all those years, back to back to back to back to back to back. And I would get home like some Sunday mornings after, let's say, in a road game to Missouri. I'd get home at 5 a.m., knowing I'd have to get up at 6 a.m. And at that time, I was at the North Campus, and I'd have to speak at 8, 9:15, 11, and then again at 8 p.m. for the walk. And guess what? After the walk, I'd go to bed and do it all over again. And then one day it dawned on me, I've spent 4 or 5 years absent. Yeah, I've been doing things that people would dream of doing, but I was gone. So I want to ask all the dads in here to do something. Learn from me. And hopefully learn earlier than me. There is an urge to swap toys for our time. And the truth is this, there will be a day our kids don't remember our gifts, but they'll never forget our absence. So that's temptation number 1, toys for our time. Temptation number 2, the urge to swap effort at work for effort at home. Let me say it this way. I think every dad knows this. There's something about work that is altogether demanding. Altogether demanding of our creativity, of our leadership, diplomacy skills, our ideas, our enthusiasm and excitement. Demanding when it comes to money management. Work demands building relationships. Work demands learning how to deal with the public. Work demands us going the extra mile. Everything about work seems altogether demanding. And the consequences are after work, when we get home, our family can get leftovers. You see, there is an urge for every man in this room. There is a temptation to give work our best and leave the rest with our spouse. So to the men in this room, please hear me out. I don't care how high you are in your corporation, business, how many years you've been there. Ready? Every man in this room is replaceable at work, never at home. So be careful with the amount of effort that we give at one for the expense of the other. James says it this way. Hey, believers who are poor, they have something to boast about. God has still honored them. And those who are rich should boast that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a little flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers. The little flower drops and it fails. It falls and beauty fades. In the same way, here we go. The rich will fade with all their achievements. So let's not be deceived once again, dads. Some of us are drowning. We're drowning because we've said yes to so much stuff affiliated with work and more opportunities to continue to progress and to climb. Looking back, some of the best decisions I've made are moments that I said no to something at work for the sake of family. For the moment I didn't attend a meeting to actually go to a game. Some of the greatest things that I will do, that you will do, is actually make priority for family vacations. Work can go without you. I'm embarrassed to tell you that there have been seasons in my life where I would take pride on teaching every Sunday to show you that I could do it because a little bit of my ego was wrapped up in what you thought. Something we don't need to forget. Ready? Overcommitment is not admirable. It might impress the public, but your family feels it. So on behalf of opportunities, dads, outside the home, opportunities to climb, opportunities to stay busy, opportunities for achievement, accomplishment. Ready? There's a few phrases that we could learn. You got to practice them. They're beautiful. Number 1, no. Number 2, not today. Number 3, I've got plans. It's because if we're not careful, our effort at work trumps the effort at home. There's a third temptation, that is this, the urge to swap lectures with family. For listening, James gives guidelines to dads. Listen to verse 19. He says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. Unfortunately, we mix it up. Sometimes I'm quick to anger, quick to speak, and slow to listen. And then we wonder why things aren't going well at the house. Like sometimes I wonder, don't my kids realize how insightful and wise I am, right? But the reality is, I've got it backwards. And then it gets them angry. You know, there is a New Testament verse addressed specifically for dads that is very powerful. Ephesians 6, verse 4, fathers, do not provoke your kids to anger by the way you treat them. The word provoke literally means to exasperate, to cause irritation, to remove a kid's drive. So every time I'm quick to angry, quick to lecture, and slow to listen, they tune me out. And rightfully so. It isn't effective. So that's temptation number 3. Here's number 4, the urge to swap perfection for progress. A lot of dads in this room, we're driven, like we're diehards, and we kind of have this little perfectionist trait, and we take pride in it. Unfortunately, there is a problem when it comes to perfectionism. Ready? Understand that this is affiliated with unrealistic expectations. The problem is perfectionists take great pains, and we give them to others. Many in this room are like, well, that's just part of getting better. Well, here's some telltale signs that you might struggle with perfectionism. Ready? Don't answer out loud. Don't even answer quietly. Let's just answer these silently. Number 1, do you get upset when things don't go the way you think they should go? Do you expect the absolute best of yourself and others at all times? Here's another one. Do you find yourself getting irritated with other people because they can't seem to understand the importance of getting things done right? Are you hard on yourself when you make a mistake? Are you twice as hard on yourself when you make the same mistake again? Are you disappointed in others because of the lack of quality in their work? Is the idea of being average frustrating? Because it's right there that the message of perfection over progress is communicated. I hate to do this, but I've told Jenny this the other day. I'm like, Jen, the hard thing about Father's Day, like, imagine on Mother's Day and you have to get up here and speak like her as a female. You don't want to brag on yourself, but you don't want to tell everybody how to do it. Well, Father's Day is kind of that way as well. So I think one of the best approaches that I can take is to kind of let you know a little bit about my struggles. So on this issue of perfectionism versus progress, please don't think less of me. It's just a fact, all right? Our kids are old enough to do chores, developing responsibility, and there's nothing more beautiful than when they do it right and they do it without being asked, right, parents? It's beautiful. A few weeks ago, Jen came home, I came home from work. We were so excited. Jen noticed that the entire house was clean. Nobody had asked anyone to do a thing, and she's ecstatic, basically doing backflips. And instead of me doing the same thing, I go to my room because I know what's going to happen. I walk into my room, I go right beside my bed, and the trash can is still overflowing because it's always missed. And what did I do? I decided to go the opposite route of Jen and just point out, no one got the trash beside my bed. Ready? That is exactly what it looks like when a dad swaps perfection for progress. Instead of me saying like, man, that was incredible what you guys did today, I pointed out the only thing that I saw. And you tell me, what's going to motivate them to be responsible with their chores and to do it without being asked? Jen going crazy or me pointing out what they've done wrong? For a second, let me prove a point. Let's talk the world of baseball. Go Vols, right? As we watch these games, and you see these hitters come up, high pressure moments. If a guy bats 400, he's a stud, right? You realize that's getting a hit and getting on base only 4 out of 10 times? That means 6 out of 10 times he ain't getting there. But if he were to do that 400 for as long as he's at the University of Tennessee, he's going further. We all agree. That's incredible. 350 isn't 400, but 350 is awesome, right? That alone, though, if you think about it, it's not even getting on base 4 out of 10. But it's celebrated because it's so hard. If you and I would take the same approach, dads, on behalf of when our kids make progress, it makes a world of difference. James lets us know our response on the opposite, it doesn't go far. Verse 20, James says, human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. In other words, it doesn't achieve what we want it to achieve. So far, to the dads, 4 areas that we struggle. Ready? We want to swap toys for our time. Our effort at work for effort at home. Lectures instead of listening. Perfection for progress. One more I want to mention today. That's the urge to swap sexual drive. Premarital devotion. I would love to say this goes away as we get older, but it doesn't. Verse 13, we read it earlier. James says, remember, when you're being tempted, don't say, God's tempting me. God's never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Look carefully at this. There's a rationale that we all creatively come up with. There's this urge to think that we can find satisfaction outside the realm of marriage by finding intimacy with someone other than our spouse. And James says we even bring God into our temptations just in general. I've heard men say, if God didn't want me to open up with that lady at work, he wouldn't have let us work together. I've heard guys make statements like, well, God wants me to be honest about my struggles at home, and this lady's listening. I've heard guys make statements like, well, God knows that my needs at home aren't being met. It's as if guys are saying that God's ultimate goal in marriage is our happiness. James says, let me tell you about your desires. You think that's God's desires? It's not. Verse 14, he said, here's your desires. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. The word entice is not used very much in the New Testament, but it means to draw something out of a place of safety by use of a bait. Got lots of fishermen in here. Think for a second. I give some examples a couple weeks ago about my daughter and I, my son and I, killing the turkey. I want you to think about turkey hunting for a second. Drawing it out of a place of safety by use of a bait. Think camouflage. Think silence. Think sitting in a hidden area like a blind, learning when to call, when not to call, to draw it out of safety and then blow its brains out. And we laugh, but that's exactly what's going on. The bird is enticed. He's pulled from a place of safety, and then he's harmed. James says all of us are enticed by our own desires. The brain goes blank. All warning signals get silenced. We ignore previous advice. We disregard the scriptures. We have a pity party on behalf of our own marriage, and we think, God let this happen. Here's what James says, verse 15. These desires give birth to sinful actions. And when sin's allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. It always leads to death, never joy. I've got great friends that have embraced this and are still right in the middle of it, and I've talked to them and tried giving them wisdom. And I will tell you one word that does not describe what they're currently going through, and that is happiness. They didn't find it. It's not what they thought. Forgive me for this example, but I'm going to give it. Years ago, I remember taking my kids when they were younger to a circus that came to Knoxville. And as an adult, I'm watching their reaction and I'm watching the circus as an adult. and I don't remember it being this bad when I was a kid. Like, from my kids' point of view, they see the glitter, the stars, the lights, everything is beautiful. From my point of view, I see unhappy, like acrobats. Like, they're not happy. I see broken equipment. I see lights that are faulty. I see, I smell elephant dung, right? I see a program that's put together that's really not that good. I see snow cones that are more filled with ice and not flavors. But it took an adult perspective. Man, like wide-eyed kids, we chase relationships outside of God's design for marriage. And we are blind to the fact that later we will realize it's not where we're supposed to be. But unfortunately, we don't find it until the glitter wears off. James is just saying there's an urge. And every man, warning, warning, water may rise rapidly, to swap sexual drive for marriage devotion. I want to tell you, please hear me out. After 24 years, marriage can be hard. Ask Jen. But it can be so rewarding. Ask me. To the men and women in this room that are struggling right now, and to the guys in particular, hold on, you can make it, a promise. And even when you entertain ideas that someone else is out there, here's what I want to tell you. If the grass is greener on the other side, please start watering your own yard. Like, pour into your spouse. Your family needs it. Let's close with these words from James. To dads, so dads, get rid of all filth and evil in your lives. Humbly accept the word that God has planted in your heart, for it has the power to save your soul. And don't just listen to God's word. Like on Sunday for this hour, don't just come and listen and then go. No, don't just listen to the word. Do what it says. Like on behalf of today, pay close attention to these urges as the leader. We want to swap this for that and this for that. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourself. So dads, our role in the real world, not just this life, but the life to come, the eternal, the spiritual, it couldn't be more important. Your kids aren't waiting for you to point to your mom and to say, ask her, she knows. They want to hear it, they want to see it from us. And on days like this, we gather the family together and we come to church. This is beautiful. I want you to remember this. Church isn't just an assignment. It's a byproduct of following Jesus. As you consider where you are as a dad, how you're doing, think about this. If you died tomorrow, what would they say about you? You know, the ones with your name in their blood? What would they say about you? What could they say about you? What should they say about you? On behalf of this message, common sense tells you water may rise rapidly without warning. Keep your head up. Ready? It's never too late to start doing what's right. Can we pray together? For a few moments, let's sit quiet. Hopefully you've got a great meal ahead, dads, and maybe a relaxing afternoon with family. You get to watch the U.S. Open, another vol baseball game, but right now, it's a good time to be quiet. Maybe the Spirit of God is urging you to build some bridges that you've been tempted to burn. Let's just say, imagine right now, everyone in this room, we're all standing before Jesus. We're all in the same shape. It's called sinners. And we're looking into the face of Jesus who died for us. He went from the cross to the tomb to the right hand of the Father, and he's inviting us to join him, not just after death, but now in how we live this life. Dads, would you let him know an area that you've been swapping this for that? And as James says, tell God you need wisdom. Let him know you need a rock beneath your feet as the water rises. Dear God, I pray today that we would understand in many ways this is the most important part of a message. When we're alone with our thoughts, when we're shaped by words and concepts and pictures from James. Remind every dad in this room that not one dad is perfect. If we were, we wouldn't need a Savior. Not one of us here has modeled these things to the T. So help us as dads learn to say no. And when necessary, when to say yes. Help us with our priorities. Help us to come to terms with reality. Bring us face to face with truth, with what's right, with what's best. To set us free from what's kept us in bondage. God, I pray that you would bless every dad in this room, lift his heart, encourage his mind. Remind him that he's in it for the long haul. Thank you for grace. And God, may today be the first day that we begin again to do what's right. I pray this for the sake of those that are behind us. And God, don't let us forget that as dads, our greatest contribution on behalf of eternity may not be in something that we've accomplished, but rather in someone we have raised. And I pray this today in Jesus' name.
Giant, and I was just a kid. I was always trying to do everything he did. I can still remember every lesson he taught me. Growing up, learning how to be like my old man. Father's pride, but I was defiant when he made me walk the line. He knew how to lift me up and when to let me fall. Looking back, he always had a plan. My old man, my old man. The callus on his hands, dusty overall. My old man. Now I finally understand. I have a lot to learn from my old man. I'm a giant, got a son of my own. He's always trying to go everywhere I go. Do the best I can to raise him up the right way, hoping that someday he wants to be like his old man.
Thank you, Dad, for showing me what it means to love your wife and family, for teaching me the importance of hard work and dedication. You've taught me to value our community and church, to strive to make a difference. Thank you for teaching me patience and how to stay calm under pressure, for showing me the importance of honesty and integrity in everything I do. Thank you for spending time with me, for showing me how to be faithful in the mundane everyday things, for showing me how to be consistent in an ever-changing world. Thank you for the lessons and perseverance when things don't go as planned, and for reminding me to always appreciate the journey. These moments have shaped who I am. I don't always say it, but I hope you know how grateful I am. Thank you, Dad.
My old man, I know one day we'll meet again. As he's looking down, my old man, I hope he's proud of who I am. I'm trying to fill the booth